She drove the knife into the crown prince's leg while the funeral bells were still ringing for her father. No warning, no words, just steel through silk, and a scream that cracked off the cathedral walls. Every noble in that hall thought Reinhardt Linke had finally lost her mind. They were wrong. She had just woken up from it, because the woman holding that blade had already lived this entire life once. She had already loved this man, married this man, and died alone and forgotten because of him. And now she was back, 15 years early, with a list of names and a single promise. By the end of this, the most feared killer the Empire will ever produce, the rabid warhound they call the Mad Dog, will be kneeling at her feet, and he will do it gladly. This is I Tamed My Ex-Husband's Mad Dog, a regression-revenge story set in the rotting heart of the Alenketh Empire. In her first life, Reinhardt was the perfect duchess. Obedient, useful, quiet. She was married off to Prince Mitchell Alenketh to chain her father's house to the throne, and she gave that marriage everything. Her loyalty, her family's power, her silence. In return, the prince gave her nothing but humiliation. He paraded his favorites through the palace while Reinhardt was pushed further and further into the dark, until her name was a joke and her bloodline was a footnote. The cruelest part was never the neglect. It was the slow, patient theft of everything that had ever made her someone, piece by piece, until there was nothing left to take. She spent her last years plotting a revenge she was too broken and too late to finish. At 39, sick and abandoned in a cold room no one bothered to visit, she simply stopped breathing. That should have been the end of her. It was only the beginning. When Reinhardt opened her eyes again, she was 24. Same black gown, same funeral. The worst day of her old life, happening for a second time. Her father lay dead before her. Her marriage to the prince was only days away, and every disaster she had already suffered through was sitting there in front of her, untouched, waiting to happen all over again. She could see it all coming. The forged debts that would bury her father's house. The whispers that would brand her cold and barren. The night the prince would lock her out of her own home. 15 years of slow murder laid out in front of her like a map. Most people would have wept. Reinhardt smiled. She knew exactly how this story ended, which meant she knew exactly where to cut. So when Prince Michel crossed the hall toward her, wearing that practiced, pitying expression, the same face he wore right before he ruined her the first time, she did not bow her head. She took the ceremonial dagger from her father's altar and she buried it in the prince's thigh in front of the entire court. It was not an accident. It was a message. She would rather be branded a mad woman than spend one more lifetime as his convenient, silent wife. And a mad woman is exactly what they called her. The court whispered that grief had broken her. The prince called it treason. Within the week, Reinhardt was stripped of her titles and loaded into a guarded carriage, sent down the long, frozen road to a forgotten border estate, the place the Empire sent inconvenient nobles to disappear. They thought they had buried her a second time. They had no idea they had just let her off the leash. The road to exile is where everything changed. High in the freezing mountains, Reinhardt's carriage crossed paths with a prison wagon, and inside it was a creature in chains. Filthy, half-starved, snarling at anyone who came near the bars. The guards called him a rabid animal, a nameless soldier so violent that even the army had given up on him and decided he was better off dead. But Reinhardt knew that face. She had seen it 100 times in her first life, grown older and colder. This broken thing in chains was Will Kalana. The war hero the prince would one day forge into a weapon. The mad dog of the Empire, the blade that cut down hundreds and feared no one, the same blade that had been pointed at her own throat for 15 years. And here he was, before any of it had happened. Young, nameless, belonging to no one. So Reinhardt did something no one in his entire life had ever done. She looked at the thing the whole world called a monster, and instead of flinching, she gave him a name. She paid for his chains to be struck off. She fed him. She knelt in the snow in front of the most dangerous man the Empire would ever create, and she told him calmly that he was hers now, and that from this moment forward, he answered to her and to no one else in this world. He looked at her like a starving animal that had just been shown the first kindness of its life, and he followed her into the dark without a single question. From there, the story becomes a slow, patient, ice-cold dismantling. Reinhardt remembers everything. Every scandal before it breaks. Every poisoning before the cup is even poured. Every ally who is going to betray her. And every ally who is going to die if she does nothing. And now she has, sharpening quietly at her side, a man who would burn the entire empire to the ground if she so much as asked. So she begins to move the pieces. The first time Will kills for her, it is the assassin the prince sends to finish the job on that frozen road. The man never even reaches the carriage. He simply does not arrive, and in the morning, the snow is no longer white. That is the moment Reinhardt understands what she is holding. Not a servant, not a guard. A loaded weapon that has chosen her hand. So she begins to aim it. She saves the people who died too early the first time and binds them to her. She lets the prince's clever little schemes collapse under their own weight before they can ever touch her. She rebuilds the broken house everyone wrote off, brick by brick, with foresight no enemy can match. And she sets her sights on the one she hates most. Not the prince. The woman who smiled at her in one lifetime and fed her poison in the dark. Dulcinea, the viper of the court, beautiful and beloved and utterly without conscience. But the deeper Reinhardt drives her revenge, the more she notices something wrong with her tame attack dog. Will obeys too easily, as if he has been waiting his whole life for the order. He knows things he should have no way of knowing. He flinches at names that have not been spoken yet. He guards her sleep like a man who has already lost her once. And sometimes, when he thinks she is not looking, the mad dog stares at her like a man remembering a future that has not happened. Like grief he has not earned. She tells herself it does not matter. A weapon does not need to be understood. It only needs to be aimed. And so she aims him, again and again. And one by one, the people who destroyed her first life begin to fall. And then the truth lands, and it breaks the whole story open. Will is not just a weapon she was lucky enough to reach first. Will regressed too. He remembers the first life, every single year of it, including the one thing Reinhardt never knew. In that lost, buried timeline, the mad dog had loved her, quietly, hopelessly, from the shadows of the same court that was grinding her into nothing. He had stood by, a weapon in another man's hand, forbidden to act, and watched her fade and die alone in that cold room, and something inside him had died with her. When he tore his way back through time, he did not come back for revenge. He did not come back for the war, or the glory, or the prince who made him a monster. He came back, across death itself, for her. The killer she thought she was coldly using had chosen her over 2 entire lifetimes. So when the reckoning finally arrives, it is not really revenge anymore. It is a verdict. The prince who threw her away watches everything he built crack apart in his hands, undone by a wife he was certain he had already broken. Dulcinea pours one last cup of poison, and this time it is her own lips that meet it. The court that exiled a grieving girl learns exactly what that girl becomes when you give her 15 years of foresight and a devoted monster who answers only to her. Reinhardt wins. Not partially, completely. Every name on her list, crossed off in ink the color of old blood. But the victory carries a price she never planned for. Because somewhere in the middle of all that cold, surgical revenge, the woman who only wanted to make them pay started, against her own will, to feel again. And the mad dog who only ever wanted one person in the world to belong to stopped looking like a weapon and started looking like the only soul in 2 lifetimes who ever truly saw her. And that is the question this story leaves sitting in your chest. Reinhardt set out to use a monster and discard him, exactly the way the prince once used and discarded her. But the line between owning someone and loving them turns very thin when you have both already died once. So here is what I want to know from you. Was Reinhardt the hero of the story? Or did she simply become a softer, smarter version of the man who ruined her, building her own loyal weapon out of a broken person? Did she truly tame the mad dog? Or did 2 lonely ghosts just find each other in the wreckage of the same nightmare and call it love because there was nothing left to call it? Drop your verdict in the comments. I read all of them. And if you want more stories where the protagonist does not come back as the same person who died, follow Dark Manhwa Recaps. A new recap every Thursday. The next one is already waiting in the dark.